Hi, my name is Matt Sachs, and I'm reading for the role of Hamlet. To be
or not to be.
That is the question.
Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings
and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to
take arms against a sea of troubles, and
by opposing, end them.
To die, to sleep no more.
And by asleep to say,
we end the heartache
and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to.
'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished.
To die,
to sleep,
perchance to dream.
Aye, there's the rub. Aye, there's the rub.
There's the rub.
Aye, there's the rub.
For in that sleep of death,
what dreams may come
when we have shuffled off this mortal coil,
must give us pause.
But that the dread of something after death,
the undiscovered
country from whose bourne
no traveler returns,
puzzles the will,
and makes us rather
bear those ills we have,
and fly to others
that we not know of.
Thus conscience does
make coward
of us all.
I love auditions, actually. They're my favorite part of the process.
I kind of look at auditions as fun. I mean, they want you to succeed. They want you to be awesome so they can stop looking.
I don't like them, and I don't trust any actors who do.
It's part of the job. That's what you do. That's your job every day. My brother, who works in finance, he says, I can't believe you go on job interviews every day of the week. He says, that would make me crazy. And I say, well, that's basically what your job as an actor is. You go on job interviews every day, if you're lucky.
to me, there are basically three categories of auditions. There are the ones that you really want, that you get. Then there's the ones that you really want and you don't get. And they're the ones that you don't give a shit about and you get them.
It doesn't matter if you're the first choice or the fifth choice, as long as you're the final choice. As long as you get the job, that's what counts. One of the first professional auditions I had that I remember was I went down to Chicago to audition for a company called the National Shakespeare Company. I was 22 years old. Actually, I was 21. I was right out of college. And I went down there, and I walked in, and the guy said, "Sit down, Mr. Moore, sit down. Don't stand there like a pimple on an elephant's ass." So I sat down, and he said, we chatted briefly. He said, "So, what in your vast Shakespearean repertoire are you going to do for me?" So I got up, and I did my two contrasting pieces, and he said, "Do you have another one you could do?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Well, go ahead." Okay, so I did that one. He said, "How about another one?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Well, do that one too." So I did that one, and after that, he had me sit down and talk to me fairly reasonably, fairly nicely. He said, "That was a really nice audition, very good. Thank you for coming in." And a couple of days later, they called to offer me a job, touring with this company, and I turned him down. I didn't want to work with this guy. And that may have been a mistake for a 21-year-old to turn down a touring gig, that would have been probably great fun. But I was so put off by the auditioner, I just thought, this isn't going to be any fun. This isn't going to be, I don't want somebody yelling at me. I love Shakespeare. I don't want someone to ruin it.
I'm sitting there and we're all watching, and I think the whole room kind of got the feeling that Scarlett hadn't been found yet. And I'm sitting there and I see Jeffrey, my advisor, pass a note to Melanie, the director. And somehow I just knew that it said, "Have Adina read for Scarlett." So very shortly thereafter, Melanie says, "Adina, I want you to read for Scarlett." And I'm like, oh, okay. So I get up, and there was this prop rifle we had to use. So I picked up the rifle, crooked my head, and started saying the lines. And it was like electric. Everybody knew right there that Scarlett had entered the room. It was crazy. And it was awesome. Oh, God.
So I do my monologue that I prepared, and then they asked me, they said, well, we've got these, there's cabaret and it's a musical. Would you like to audition for that? And I said, no, I don't, because I don't know the musical. I don't really feel like singing. And then they said, one of the directors had said, well, James, if you're going to come and audition and the director asks you to audition for a show, you probably should do it. And I thought to myself, you're probably right, but I don't know any songs. I didn't prepare any songs. They're like, well, can you sing Amazing Grace? I said, no, I can't sing Amazing Grace. I don't know the words to Amazing Grace. Knowing that I just didn't want to, in my heart, I just did not want to sing in front of people. So they're like, well, can you do Take Me Out to the Ball Game? I'm like, okay, anybody can do Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. So I get done singing it, and the director asks, he's like, look, would you please reconsider auditioning for Cabaret? And I said, if you really want me to, I can reconsider, but I'm just not comfortable really singing because, I've never done this before. But then I thought back to, well, I've never really acted before either, so why not? So that's kind of, I got a call back for that. That was the first musical I ended up ever doing, was Cabaret.
At that moment, I realized that my cell phone has not sprung ahead at daylight savings time. So now I'm in St. Paul, and I need to drive. It's a 20-minute drive to Uptown to the Jungle Theater to audition. So I say, bye, have a nice day, talk to you later, and jump in my car and race on 94 as fast as I can without breaking laws too much to the Jungle Theater. And I get there, and I get out of the car, and of course the stupid parking thing, you can't pay with cash or with credit cards, that's not working, and I'm just trying to get into the building. So I get into the building. All right, I open the door, I'm like, hi, I'm Ben Chadwick, I'm here to audition, my slot is like right now. And so they're going, okay, here, sign in this, do this. Your group is already in there, so we're going to give you your number, and you just go walk right in. We'll have somebody take you back. And I'm like, okay, great. Okay, great. I didn't miss it. So I walk in there, and just as I'm walking back, and they take me down these hallways, and they walk me up to the line, and they go in numbers. So they walk me up to the front of the line, and there's one person in front of me before I have to go. So they step up, that person walks out just as I get there, and they have 90 seconds. So I literally have 90 seconds to compose myself and get out onto the stage and do the best audition I can for all these people. And this person in front of me doesn't do very well, and I'm watching them kind of bomb on stage, and I'm going, oh crap, oh jeez, everything. Just, I mean, my blood pressure's probably got to be, 100 over 560 or something like that. I have no idea. And so I take a deep breath, that person leaves, and you walk out on stage, and the time starts from the first moment you start. So I did my audition piece. I stumbled through the end of it. I thought I did horrible in that first one, and then I stepped into my other piece, and I freaking nailed it. And I was done, boom, and I walked off the stage on the other side, and was completely calm, and walked down the hallway, and then that was it. And I was like, that was a really kick-ass audition. I mean, that was seriously, well, how could I not be in the moment? I had no choice. A half hour later, they post the callbacks, the people who want to cast you and stuff like that. So I'm waiting, and we're waiting anxiously, and I'm like, okay, great. I'm looking at all the sheets, and it's no name. I'm no Ben Chadwick on that list, Hey, I got one callback out of that group. So off we go later that afternoon to the callback, and I discovered that the only reason that I was called back for this role was because the main character is over 6'5", and the only reason I got called back was because I was tall enough to play the role. Now, I don't know if that's true. I have to assume that I had some talent, but sometimes it's just disheartening.
I was auditioning for a play here in this very theater, as a matter of fact, in this room. Blythe Spirit. Showed up. It was a beautiful evening. For some reason, I remember I had on a white dress. I was paired up out in the lobby with, you know, kind of a 40, 45-year-old-ish, slightly balding, sort of corporate kind of guy. And we were sent in here to read together. It was a cold reading, and it was pretty awful. I mean, we had to do British accents, and neither of us were very good at that. Anyway, we got through it. Walked out together. They didn't need us to read anymore. And I was headed out to my car. And he said, maybe we'll see each other again. And I said, I hope so. Meaning, you know, that we would be cast together in a show, which would be fun. And I didn't think any more about it, drove home. A few days later at work, I'm reading the Star and Tribune, you know, the 550s. And there was this really weird audition notice. It did have my name at the beginning, and it was obviously from this guy that I had auditioned for Blythe Spirit with, trying to find me. And I sort of assumed it was because he was in another show and they needed, you know, a woman of my type, so he didn't know how to find me. It was written that way enough for me to think, you know, it wasn't just for a date or something. And he left his phone number at the bottom of the notice, so I called him. And we're chatting, and I said you know, saw the notice in the 550s, and we're talking about theater and why he placed it. And as I'm talking to him, one of my coworkers, Philip, walked in, and he's reading the city pages, and he said, Amy, there's a personal for you. Really? So kind of shoves it over, and as I'm talking, I'm realizing it's exactly the same notice. And I said to the guy on the phone, did you place 2 ads? And he said, yes, I did. As a matter of fact, I placed 5. 5 ads in newspapers all over the Twin Cities. You placed 5 ads. Well, I really didn't know what to say, because I immediately just got completely creeped out. And I thought, well, I'll check this out. I said, do you do this sort of thing often? And he said, oh yeah, I do it all the time.
My favorite audition story is actually when I was doing auditions. I was auditioning for a film project, and we had somebody come in at the beginning of the day, and we had asked them, you know, there's 2 different kinds of auditions. There's sides where you give them material, and then there's a monologue audition where you ask them to prepare a 1 to 2 minute monologue to do. And so we had done the latter. We had asked them to do a 1 to 2 minute monologue. And this first person came in and got up and you know, said who they were and everything. We're rolling the camera, and he says, and I'm going to be doing a commercial for Advil. And the camera's rolling. I didn't want to, you know, be a dick, and so I said, oh, awesome, great. And he does a 30-second spot for Advil. You know, after I've been out skiing all day, I come home and my bones are weary. And I thought, wow, that was unusual. Good, great, you know, thank you. We'll get back to you. And I'm like, well. And then the next person comes in, and I'm like, okay, so they get up in front, and he says, and I'll be doing a spot for Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Turns out that a modeling agency had found out about the audition. It was sort of a hip, young modeling agency, meaning new and inexperienced modeling agency, and they had decided that they would send out their models to all the casting calls that they could find, but had told them just to, rather than prepare a dramatic monologue, to just do a commercial. And so I ended up with an entire day of people coming in and doing when I give my kids candy, it's important to me that I know what's in it. That's why I always choose Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups are pure Reese's milk. Yeah, all day long. It reached its inevitable climax when a girl came in from the same agency without a commercial. This was the first person without a commercial. And she walked in. I said, so commercial? And she's like, oh, no, a scene. I said, oh, fantastic. Somebody prepared a monologue. No, it wasn't a monologue. It was a dialogue. It was a 2-person scene that I had to read with her and during which she got kind of argumentative with me about certain, not actively, but very passively, like she'd clearly prepared a way to do it, and that was the way she was going to do it, regardless of somebody, you know, fixing it. So we would get to, for example, Katie, why do you have to be such a martyr? A martyr? A martyr? You are calling me a martyr? That's right, I'm calling you a martyr because I think you are being a martyr. You always say I'm being a martyr. And that right there I thought was bold and strong, but didn't really show that, you know, picking up what your other actors are laying down that you kind of want from an actor. Yeah. So I had a lot more respect for people auditioning after that because generally they came in, you know, a lot closer to the mark than the people I saw that day.
The notice said we are looking for male actors in their early 20s. I was 23 years old. And I thought this is made for me. So I'll go 45 minutes early so I won't have to stand in line. And when I showed up at the audition, which was held at the Ansonia Hotel on the 3rd floor in a hotel room, the line began at the door of the hotel room. It stretched all the way down the hall, wound down 3 flights of stairs, across the hotel lobby, out the front door, down the sidewalk to the corner, and then disappeared around the corner. And as I walked that line to get at the back, I did what a lot of actors do, and that is, you know, sort of check out the competition. Who's here, and should they be? And I noticed as I walked by all these actors, this is one part we're auditioning for. I noticed that at least half of them were clearly older than their early 20s. They were in their 30s, they were in their 40s, and some were even in their 50s. And they had makeup on, and they had hair pieces on, and they were trying to look young. And as I looked at them, I saw something that really scared me, my first audition. It was a look of utter desperation. That, like this is the end of my dream. And if I don't get this role, I'm going to have to go back to Michigan, or Missouri, or Minnesota. And I thought that could be me in 15 or 20 years. And it was the first time I ever came face to face with the reality of what it's like to try to make a living or a life in theater.
Going on a commercial audition is so different because it's such a the art has been taken out of the acting. It's all about selling. It's all about the product. It's all about the product is the star of the commercial. You're not, so it doesn't matter who you are. It's the product that's the star. And so it was for this soup, and they had this whole scenario that, okay, it's this log cabin out in the wilderness. It's snowing. It's cold. You come in with your logs. You drop them by the fireplace. There's a roaring fireplace. There's a roaring fire in the fireplace, and you come over and to the table, and there's this steaming bowl of soup there, and you're chilled, and you take the soup, and you taste it, and it tastes great, and it just warms you, and you feel good, and that's what we're looking for. And I'm looking around, you know, and it's being shot on a little camera, not as nice as this one, but it's being shot on a little camera in somebody's office, basically. There's no door to come through. There's no logs. There's no storm outside. There's no log cabin. There's no fire. There's no fireplace. The bowl they give you is a plastic bowl with dried cereal in it and a plastic spoon. But what kills me is that the people shooting this or casting this, and it's a director and a writer and a producer and the client, and there's a dozen, maybe, you know, half a dozen or more people in the room. Whoever knows who they are. They never introduce themselves because they don't have the time and they don't really care. But who's ever shooting it can imagine the log cabin. They can imagine the snowstorm. They can imagine the logs and the fire and the fireplace. They can imagine the hot steaming bowl of soup. They can imagine, you know, the steam and the what they can't imagine is you with a different haircut. Because, like, no, it doesn't look right. Yeah, thank you very much. That was it. Thank you. Next.
But that was a fantastic audition experience. It'll never happen to me again, I don't think, where the director will just, on the spot, you're the one. So I love that story too.
I tremble, or my lip will tremble, which, you know, it's your face. How are they not going to see that?
It's exciting, it's thrilling, it's scary, kind of all wrapped up at the same time. It's like driving your car off a cliff without actually driving your car off a cliff and getting, you know, hurt or killed.
I try to be familiar with the material and then go in and let her rip. And it often does rip.